Hi, I'm Suzy Q. Public, just an ordinary American trying to make sense of what's going on. And today, I have a couple of common sense questions about two things that happened over the weekend and how they may be connected. First, the security incident at the White House Correspondents Dinner Saturday night. And second, some late night humor that crossed a line just days earlier. Let's walk through the facts and ask a few better questions. Around 8:34 p.m., that's pretty specific, on April 25th, gunshots rang out near the main security screening area at the Washington Hilton. President Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President Vance, and cabinet members were inside, along with hundreds, if not thousands, of press members. Secret Service agents evacuated the president and other protectees safely. One officer was shot, but protected by his vest. The president was unharmed. Here's the suspect, Tomas Allen, moments after he was taken into custody, in a photo that was shared publicly by President Trump. The suspect, 31-year-old Allen of Torrance, California, was armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives. He was taken into custody. This is now being investigated as the third major assassination attempt. Third major, like there are minor assassination attempts on President Trump. Allen, who had a master's in computer science, worked as a tutor and mechanical engineer and had made a small donation to a Democratic PAC. Family members reported he had been making increasingly radical statements and sent a manifesto calling himself the friendly federal assassin, listing Trump administration officials as targets. He acted alone. Here's where the bigger question hits me. How much does the rhetoric we hear every day, especially from the left, contribute to an atmosphere where someone like this decides violence is the answer? I personally believe it's influencing a lot of people to condone or even accept violence as a legitimate option. But what do you think? A recent YouGov poll supports my opinion from September 2025 appears to support the concern. It found striking differences. Look at this. While most Americans across the board say violence is never justified, about 25% of very liberal respondents said political violence can sometimes be justified to achieve political goals, compared to just 5% of very conservative respondents. 25%, 5%. And younger liberals showed even higher numbers. That data got me thinking. If this many people are willing to justify violence, what kind of rhetoric is feeding it?
In the rhetoric, you mentioned the First Lady and Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel's comments were, Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. And he said this days before the shooting, but there does seem to be a normalization of rhetoric about assassinating this particular president. How can this administration try to put an end to this?
Well, I think you heard it directly from the president on Saturday night, Aisha, that in his words, we need to recommit ourselves as a country to toning down the rhetoric and to unifying around what makes our country great. That's true of everyone who works in this White House, but as I said, it's also true of everyone who has a voice and a platform across this country, whether you're on television, a podcast host, people listen, and when you have mentally disturbed individuals across the country who are listening to this crazed rhetoric about the president day after day after day, it inspires them to do crazy things. And unfortunately, it's not just the media, it is the entire Democrat Party has made their pitch to voters across the country that Donald Trump poses an existential threat to democracy, that he is a fascist, and that they compare him to Hitler. I mean, these are despicable statements that the American people have been consuming for years. And so many mentally perturbed individuals are led to believe these words are truth and then are inspired to act on it. I have a whole host of examples that we can share with you after. It is pages and pages of major Democrat Party elected officials saying, such as Rep. Hakeem Jeffries just this month said, We are in an era of maximum warfare everywhere all the time. Governor Josh Shapiro said heads need to roll within the administration. Senator Alex Padilla said people are, quote, dying because of fear and terror caused by the Trump administration. Senator Elizabeth Warren, President Trump is making the country look like a, quote, fascist state. Senator Adam Schiff saying President Trump using a dictator playbook. Senator Ed Markey calling President Trump a dictator, saying that this administration's actions are authoritarianism on steroids. Governor J.B. Pritzker, never before in my life have I called for mass protest disruptions. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. You have Rep. Presley saying, we'll see you in the streets. Rep. Monica McIver, a Democrat representative on Capitol Hill, we will not take this shit from Donald Trump. He thinks he's a dictator. We are at war. These are Democrat elected officials calling for war against the President of the United States and his supporters. I could go on and on, but again, when you have people in positions of power that are saying things like this every single day for years, you are inspiring violence by people who are already mentally ill. And that's what we've seen against this president for far too long.
Leavitt laid it out clearly yesterday. Years of that kind of language from elected Democrats and media figures has created a dangerous climate, and the shooter's own writings echoed the same themes. In the manifesto he sent to his family just minutes before the shooting, Allen explicitly wrote that he believed it was his righteous duty to act against the administration. Look, political violence has no place in America, full stop. But as an ordinary citizen, I have to ask, when public figures repeatedly call the president a fascist, a dictator, or an existential threat to democracy, what message does that send to people? Does it lower the temperature or raise it? Now, the second thing weighing on me, just days before Saturday's incident, Jimmy Kimmel did a parody of the parody bit of the Correspondents' Dinner prep, where he described First Lady Melania Trump as having the glow of an expectant widow. Melania responded with real outrage, calling it hateful, cowardly, and corrosive. She's right that words matter. I'm not saying that one joke caused a shooting. Correlation isn't causation. But when humor normalizes dark outcomes like that, and it happens right before real violence, it makes you wonder. At what point does rhetoric cross into something that adds fuel to an already dangerous fire? These two stories together have me asking bigger, better questions. What kind of country are we becoming when assassination attempts keep happening? Why do some people feel it's okay to post how disappointed they are that the attempt didn't succeed? Does this public support for violence embolden or encourage more people to act? How do we push back against rhetoric that tears us apart? And how do we actually fix this? How do we lower the temperature and get back to a place where we can disagree without hating or harming each other? Shouldn't everyone, left, right, media, and comedy, be held to a higher standard of decency? I'm not here to preach. I'm just an ordinary American, like you, trying to connect the dots and ask better questions. What do you think? Does a constant demonization play a role? Should leaders on all sides dial it down? Can they be held accountable? And most importantly, what's one practical thing we can do as regular Americans to help change this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a real conversation. If you're tired of the pundits and want straight talk from a regular citizen's perspective, hit that subscribe button and join the Think America community. We're stronger when we think for ourselves. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and God bless America. I'll see you in the next one.